Anything from the state before we bring the jury in?
Nothing.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right, anything from the defense?
Yes.
All right.
Judge, we moved to dismiss this case for lack of jurisdiction by the 15th Circuit of District Court. While it's customary for police departments, sheriff's departments to share resources in crime scene investigation, neither has the authority to transfer jurisdiction to a different court. And testimony you've heard today, it indicated that this body was found on the Marion side of the 1B. In fact, what they're claiming is they transferred this jurisdiction between police departments. They don't have the authority to do that. Horry County could help all they wanted to, but they can't decide which court's going to be tried in. So we're moving to dismiss this case back based on lack of jurisdiction.
All right. State's position.
Your Honor, first of all, just to make it clear, they didn't transfer jurisdiction, they transferred evidence. That's what the testimony was. But this motion is premature because I think that would be an issue that Your Honor would decide after all of the testimony is in. And Mr. Dontell is going to testify that the killing occurred in Horry County, and that would be sufficient to establish jurisdiction.
All right. All right, I'm going to deny your motion at this time. We can readdress it when the state concludes their case. Quite frankly, I don't know if it's as much of a jurisdictional issue as it is a venue issue. That's the question in my mind. Even if it did occur in Marion County, can you transfer venue to another county? I don't know the answer to that, but it's premature to even make that decision. So I'm going to deny your motion. All right? Anything further from the defense before we bring the jury in?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring the jury in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're ready to resume the trial. Make sure you have your own notepads and no one else's notepads. State can call you next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Sergeant Alan Jones.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Alan Jones, J-O-N-E-S.
May I, Your Honor? Thank you. Sergeant Jones, where do you work?
Horry County Police.
How long have you worked there?
A little over 24 years.
I'm going to ask you to slow down just a smidge for the court reporter.
Okay.
Did you have any prior law enforcement or military experience before joining Horry County?
Yes, ma'am. I worked for the City of Conway Police Department for approximately 2.5 years.
What is your current assignment?
I'm currently a sergeant on the patrols division.
What was your assignment back in October 2020?
I was a sergeant in the criminal investigations division. A detective in the criminal investigations division.
What were some of your duties and responsibilities as a detective in the criminal investigations division?
Investigate crimes against persons, especially violent crimes, whether it be assault, sexual assaults, homicides.
What type of tasks would you undertake during those investigations?
There was multiple tasks during that investigations, whether it be to follow up on leads, do interviews, or either sometimes even gather evidence.
And you just said follow up on leads. If you can estimate, approximately how many investigations have you been involved in your 24-plus year career?
I don't know. To put a number would be pure speculation. Okay. A lot.
Okay. As you conduct those investigations, does every lead that you follow up, I believe that was your language, every lead that you follow up, is it fruitful? I guess I'll put it that way.
No, oftentimes you will follow up on leads that actually go nowhere and end up having absolutely nothing to do with the case.
Are you familiar with an investigation into a missing person turned homicide where the victim was Gregory Rice?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you assist Detective Susie with some tasks in that case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Specifically, did you and Detective Susie meet with Megan Jackson on October 23rd, of 2020?
Yes, ma'am. We conducted an interview that day.
Was she a suspect at that time?
Yes, she was.
Were you familiar with the defendant prior to the interview?
Only vaguely.
And how did you have that vague familiarity?
That she worked with a body transport service that came and picked up deceased individuals.
Was Christopher Dontell also a suspect at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you familiar with Christopher Dontell?
Again, only vaguely, as he was a deputy coroner with the coroner's office.
Okay. Prior to you and Detective Susie conducting that interview, had investigators created sort of a timeline of the defendant's movements for the night of October 2nd?
Yes, ma'am, they had. Using cell phone data, they had established a timeline of both Mr. Dontell and Ms. Jackson's movements.
Did they use any other types of investigative tools, such as interviews with other witnesses, surveillance videos, license plate readers, anything like that?
Yes, ma'am. There had been interviews with other individuals. Specifically, one of the things they had used was license plate readers, wherein it would take a picture of the tag and document where it was, the date and the time.
Okay, so let's sort of start at the beginning of the timeline. Did investigators have license plate reader stills from the River's Edge community?
Yes, ma'am.
Leading the witness, Your Honor.
Overruled.
What was significant about the River's Edge community?
The River's Edge community is where Mr. Dontell and Ms. Jackson lived.
And Your Honor, these have already been admitted and published. So I'm showing you State's Exhibit 136 and State's Exhibit 138. Are those stills that you used to help create the timeline?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you just read for 136 the date and time there, and then for 138 the date and time there?
136 is October 2nd, 2020, approximately 6:16 in the afternoon. And 138 is October 2nd, 2020, approximately 6:20 in the afternoon as well.
6:20? Okay. Moving forward in the evening, did investigators have still photos from a game camera at the Heritage, if I have to say the whole name, Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve? I call it the preserve because that's too much for me to say.
Yes, ma'am.
You have stills from that there also?
Yes, ma'am. We obtained still photos from the Department of Natural Resources, who had a game camera to monitor the area.
So I am, sorry, let me just, who's questioning?
That'd be fine.
They're already
You don't have a
admitted,
question?
actually. I believe these have already been admitted, Your Honor, 44 through 47 by stipulation of Agent Tom Buchanan of DNR. Your Honor, I believe they were admitted when I read out a number of stipulations.
Start?
I think I did that yesterday morning, late yesterday morning, Your Honor.
Oh, yes.
There were a
You
series
did
of actually.
35 through 47 at one time.
Yes, I'm doing 44 through 47 now, and then I'll show the others.
There you have it.
Okay, thank you. And Your Honor, may they be published to the jury as we discussed them? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to do Exhibit 44 first. Showing you State's Exhibit 44. Is that a still photo from the deer camera?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And do you recognize the car in that photo?
Yes, ma'am, it's a Ford Explorer. It's very much like the type that the deputy coroner drove.
Okay. Can you? Is there a date and time stamp on that photo?
There is. It's October the 2nd, 2020 at 6:26 p.m.
Are you familiar with where the preserve is located?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with where River's Edge is located?
Yes, ma'am.
Approximately how far apart are they?
Mileage, I'm not sure, but it's about a 15-minute drive, that's my recollection.
And then showing you State's Exhibit 45. Do you recognize? Do you recognize the car in that photo?
Yes, ma'am. It's a transport van that's used by the transport services that move bodies.
Is there a date and time stamp on that photo?
Yes, ma'am. October 2nd, 2020 at 6:26 p.m. as well.
Okay. And do these cars appear to be entering or exiting the preserve?
They're entering.
Next, showing you State's Exhibit 46. Again, do you recognize the vehicle in that?
Yes, ma'am. It's a minivan. Very much the same appearance of the one that was entering it a few minutes earlier.
Okay, so what's the date and time stamp on this?
Date and time and stamp on that one is October 2nd, 2020 at 6:40 p.m.
So I'm just going to have you compare 45 and 46. What's the difference in time? How long did the car appear to be in the preserve?
Just short of 15-20 minutes.
Okay. And now if I could show you State's Exhibit 47. What are we seeing in State's Exhibit 47?
That would be the Ford Explorer. Also in the far left-hand corner, you also see the minivan exiting as well. And that's on October the 2nd, 2020 at 6:40 p.m. as well.
Okay. I'm going to ask you just to keep your voice up just a little bit.
Okay.
I think the jury's having trouble hearing you. Before I move on in time, were there other still photos from the deer camera showing the defendants at the preserve in the days prior to October 2nd?
Yes, ma'am, there were.
Your Honor, now I'm going to 35 to 43, which I also believe have been admitted.
All right.
And I would ask that they be published. So if we can go to State's Exhibit 35. Can you tell us what we see in Exhibit 35?
In Exhibit 35, you have the Ford Explorer as well as the minivan entering the Ocean Bay Preserve on September the 29th, 2020 at 1:13 p.m.
So 3 days earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
And then State's Exhibit 36.
Again, it's the Explorer and the minivan, and you can actually see Miss Jackson outside of the minivan, and that is on September the 29th, 2020 at 1:14.
Are you able to see anything at the driver's door of the Ford Explorer?
Yes, ma'am. You can see the door open and an individual stepping out of it.
So showing you State's Exhibit 37.
Yes, ma'am. Again,
Let's just wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's just a lag for the photos to come up. Okay. State's Exhibit 37.
very much similar to the same picture, only at this point in time, the individual from the Explorer has stepped out, and you can see that that's Mr. Dontell.
And what's the date and time there?
The date and time on that one is September the 29th, 2020 at 1:14 p.m.
State's Exhibit 38.
Again, the Explorer and the minivan and the individuals have walked around behind,
That's okay.
behind the Explorer, and it was on September the 29th, 2020 at 1:15.
State's Exhibit 39. I'm gonna help you. I'm not gonna give you the photo until it's up. Okay. State's Exhibit 39.
The same two vehicles, the minivan at this point in time is turning out and leaving, and that's on September 29th, 2020 at 1:35 p.m.
State's Exhibit 40.
The Explorer is leaving at this point to exit the preserve, and that's on September 29th, 2020 at 1:36 p.m.
Moving on to State's Exhibit 41.
This is on September 30th, 2020 at 9:58 a.m. and the minivan and the Explorer are entering the Lewis Ocean Bay Preserve.
State's Exhibit 42.
That's the Explorer, and it appears to be exiting on September 30th, 2020 at 10:39 a.m.
And lastly, State's Exhibit 43. Whoops, sorry.
That is the minivan, also appearing to exit September 30th, 2020 at 10:39.
In establishing the timeline moving forward, did you have information, did you or did you not have information that the defendants had gone to Abuelo's that night for dinner?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we've already seen those clips. Are you familiar with the Arrowhead community where the victim lived?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us sort of generally where in the county it is?
It would be in the Clay Pond Road. Some people refer to it as almost the Forest Brooks area, down where the old Fantasy Harbor, Waccamaw Pottery used to be. A general description of the area.
Okay. You said Clay Pond Road, so is that is there an entrance to the Arrowhead community on Clay Pond Road?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there is the Clay Pond Road is where the entrance to the Arrowhead community is at.
Did investigators in building their timeline have license plate reader photos from the Arrowhead community?
Yes, there are license plate readers in the Arrowhead community, and photos were obtained for those license plate readers.
Your Honor, this time the state would proffer States Exhibit 10 and 11. I believe there was no objection to their admission.
Object. All right, States Exhibits 10 and 11 admitted into evidence without objection.
And may they be published, Your Honor.
Yes.
So we'll start with States Exhibit 10. Is that one of the LPR photos from the Arrowhead community?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And that's going into the community?
Yeah, that would be, I believe that would be entering into the community, and that's dated on October the 2nd, 2020 at 10 o'clock p.m.
And then States Exhibit 11. This has a little better view of the car. Do you recognize the minivan in that picture?
Yes, ma'am, and that's dated October the 2nd, 2020 at 10:06, and I believe that would be exiting the community.
And during the interview that you and Detective Susie conducted that day with the defendant, did you use that timeline that was sort of just sketched out?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
At the end of the interview, was the defendant still a suspect?
Yes, she was.
During the course of that interview, did either you or Detective Susie take any cell phones from the defendant, Megan Jackson?
Yes, Detective Susie did gather cell phones from Ms. Jackson.
Was that in your presence?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there a search warrant for those phones, if you know?
I believe there was.
Okay. Are you familiar with what an evidence record is for Horry County Police?
Yes, ma'am. I'm very familiar.
Figured you might be. Was an evidence record created for those phones?
Yes.
Any questions? Your Honor, actually, I'll enter this at this time, maybe I'll just enter it. State is offering State's Exhibit 18 into evidence, Your Honor.
Objection.
Mr. Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 18, admitted in evidence.
Thank you. You don't have to show this one. I'm showing you State's Exhibit 18. Is that an evidence? Well, first let me stop. Can you explain to the jury what an evidence record is used for?
Yeah, an evidence record is used to document when and where an item is collected and any time it has changed hands, whether it's to be placed into evidence where it's taken by tech to be examined or any piece of evidence is moved. Oftentimes we refer to it as a chain because it documents every movement of that piece of evidence.
Is this the chain or the evidence record for the 2 phones taken from Ms. Jackson that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the defendant give the passwords to both of those phones?
Yes, she did.
Are those passwords noted on the chain?
Yes, they are noted on the chain here with next to where the phones were collected.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you.
No objection.
Your Honor, at this time the State would proffer Exhibits 19 and 20, I believe, with no objection.
Any objection?
Mr. Your Honor.
State's Exhibits 19 and 20, admitted in evidence without objection.
I'm showing you State's Exhibits 19 and 20. Are those the phones that were taken from the defendant, Megan Jackson, on October 23rd, 2020?
Yes, ma'am. These appear to be.
Court of indulgence. That's all I have for Sergeant Jackson. Just answer any questions for Mr. Britton, please.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Thank you for being here. So just give me an idea, what was your involvement in this?
I assisted Detective Susie in doing the interview with Ms. Jackson and was there when he collected the phones and was familiar with the timeline somewhat.
Okay, and when you say a timeline, was there like a document that was created titled like timeline?
Not that I observed. It was pretty much a sit rep or a situation report from other detectives of what it was.
Okay. Wasn't a cohesive timeline as relates to what you remember?
I did not observe any kind of report that had the timeline on it. I was, again, informed by other detectives that had knowledge of it.
Okay. How involved did you stay? I mean, did you go to these roundtables and get more information about the case, or was it just surveillance and phone?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what you meant.
Was your only involvement surveillance? Did you go into the roundtables to discuss the case at large, get more information about it?
I don't recall that I'd done any of the roundtable meetings with that. As far as general discussion, it was basically a situation report or a briefing of the timeline and things that had transpired prior to the interview with Ms. Jackson.
Okay. And you remember what date that interview was?
October 23rd.
When that, on that photo we saw where vehicles coming into Arrowhead, who's driving?
You can't observe who's driving the vehicle from the photos that were taken from the LPR readers.
Okay. Anything on the vehicle on the way out? Any blood or anything on the vehicle?
Nothing that you can observe from the LPR reader.
Did you ever take the time to drive from Arrowhead to Flint Lake Apartments?
No, sir, I did not. I'm worked in the county for quite some time, so I have a vague rendition of how long most travel would take.
Okay. And what is your vague understanding of that?
From what 2 points again?
From this LPR that you showed us
Mhm.
at Arrowhead there to the area of Flint Lake Apartments?
It's only a few minutes, if I recall correctly.
Okay. And so if it's a few minutes to get there and she enters at 10 o'clock and what you just showed us is her exiting at 10:06 and it takes you a couple minutes to get there, she could kill the person at Flint Lake Apartments. Could she?
Lots of things can be done in a short period of time.
Okay. So just want to make sure I understand. It's your position that she enters at 10. It takes her, I think you said 2 to 3 minutes. Well, let's just say it's less. She has to shoot a person, get out, and get them, right? You can't just leave them there. Is that right?
Unless you would find the body there, no, it would have to be moved.
Okay. And we know this in this case it was moved. So if you've driven 2 minutes into Flint Lake Apartments area, you've had to get out and shoot somebody. You've had to get over there, right, and move the body. Sir, and then you have to put that into a vehicle, and then you've got to drive back out. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, based on the assumption of what you're going with here, yes.
Okay, you'd agree with that. And you would agree with me that that is a ridiculously tight time frame.
No, sir, not particularly. It's pretty easy to fire multiple shots from a weapon
Okay.
very rapidly.
Okay. And do that with nobody hearing it. And this was at 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this murder's taking place at 10 o'clock at night in a densely populated area. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And nobody saw it, and nobody heard it. Is that right?
There were no reports of any shots being fired, no, sir. But that's not uncommon.
Okay. But you'd agree it's less common in a densely populated area?
You have the potential for more people to hear it, yes.
Okay. And, you know, gunshots are typically loud. You agree with that, wouldn't you?
Gunshots are typically loud. I can say that I have investigated cases where individuals have actually committed suicide inside their own home and someone else sleeping in the other end of the home not hear it.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure, because you know just like I do, like the decibel levels over 100 for any 22.
I wouldn't know the exact decibel levels. They're significantly quieter than most other handgun calibers.
Okay. So we sit here today, in all of your years of investigating, you can't tell the jury that 5 gunshots is loud.
Well, 5 gunshots indeed would be loud.
Okay. All right. And I just want to make sure it's clear, we're sitting here today, you're telling me you think it was physically possible, based on what you've provided, for her to enter Flint Lake, enter Arrowhead, commit a murder, get a body into a van, and leave.
In a 6-minute time frame, yes, that's entirely possible.
Did you, on your phone records, take a peek at Gregory Rice's?
I'm sorry.
Did you do any looking into Gregory Rice's phone records?
I did get briefed on some of Mr. Rice's phone records.
Okay. And I think y'all even may have done an actual timeline.
I believe they did do a timeline on Mr. Rice's records as well.
Okay. And you would agree with me on the timeline that y'all created as part of your investigation. It has Greg Rice's phone leaving his apartment at 10:05.
Objection, Your Honor. Sergeant Jones has testified that he never saw the timeline. He said one was created, but he did not see it.
If he doesn't know, he can just answer that he doesn't know. Overruled, go ahead.
I did not see the exact time that Mr. Rice's phone left his apartment, so to tell you the exact time of that, I'm not aware of it and don't have any knowledge of it, other than, like I said, a short briefing of it.
Okay. Two people sneaking around who were having an affair that they're trying to hide. You don't see them being out there at the preserve as being inconsistent with them having an affair. Do you?
That could, in fact, be consistent with having an affair and trying to hide.
Do you know who suggested going to the shooting range or the preserve on the 29th of September?
As far as between the,
Did you? Well, I saw you were involved with phone. Did you follow up on any of these phone records?
again, I was briefed on the phone records. As far as me actually reading the phone records
Okay.
and what was taken from them, I did not read any of that personally.
That's fine. I want to be fair to you. David, court's indulgence, please. Thank you. What would you, in our tight time frame here, you would agree with me that at least in that 6-minute time period, if we're trying to accomplish something in a quick period of time, that there might need to be some effort to clean up what's left behind. Do you agree with that?
Objection calls for speculation.
Okay. No, I can ask it differently, Your Honor. Someone was shot, according to y'all, 5 times in the Flint Lake apartment area. If there was blood from that shooting, y'all would know by now, wouldn't you?
You would assume that we would probably try to find some type of blood there, depending on the caliber and whether the subject was bleeding internally or externally.
Okay. And you would agree that y'all had plenty of time to identify any blood out there?
Yeah, if there was a potential for finding blood, I would think we would have found it if there was any there.
Okay. Do you know if there was, you keep saying potential, I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Is there no potential for it?
Yes, there is potential. There's also the potential for it not to be there.
Okay.
That's why I say potential, because nothing is an exact.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Counsel kept asking you, well, no one heard the shots. In your mind, is there a difference between someone hearing the shots and reporting that they heard the shots?
Yes, ma'am. I can say personally that I live in a rural area of the county. I hear shots all the time. I obviously don't call the police for it. Again, there's a huge difference in someone hearing it and someone reporting it.
You talked a little bit about, and I don't know decibel levels or anything like that, but in your experience, is a .22 a gun that would be quieter or louder than, say, a .357?
22 would be much quieter than a .357, 9mm, or 38 or anything else of larger caliber.
Counsel asked you if 2 people sneaking around, having an affair, going to the preserve, would be consistent with them having an affair. Would it also be consistent, perhaps, with 2 people going there for target practice?
It is entirely possible to be going into preserve to target practice.
Council also asked you about finding blood in the Arrowhead community. Would the passage of more than 4 years from the date of the murder until knowledge of where the crime scene is affect your ability to find blood?
One good rain shower would affect that
So 4 years would certainly affect it.
quite a bit.
Nothing further, Your Honor. I would ask that Sergeant Jones be released from his subpoena.
Any objection?
That's right, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, you're free to go. Okay, can you call your next witness?
Your Honor, the state calls Tom Morrison.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Could you just state your name and spell your last name for the court?
Thomas Morrison, Morrison.
Mr. Morrison, are you familiar with the Arrowhead development?
I am. I've lived there since 1998 and was the president of the HOA from 2010 till 2022.
You said since 1998.
Yes.
So have you seen a lot of changes in the Arrowhead community in that time?
We were the second homeowner to move into the neighborhood. So yes.
Yes. Are you familiar with kind of when things were built there and what parts were developed when?
Yes.
Can you tell me what part of Horry County the Arrowhead community is in?
We're in between Burkale Road and Clay Pond Road. So it's an unincorporated part of Horry County. And we're off the waterway. So we have three borders really: the waterway, Clay Pond, and Burkale are kind of our three borders.
And how many ways are there to get into the community?
There is only two drivable ways. One is off of Burkale Road and one is off of Clay Pond Road.
You said you were the Homeowners Association president?
Yes.
How long were you the HOA president?
I was on the board for 12 years.
Were you on the board as president back in October 2020?
Yes.
What were some of your duties and responsibilities back as the HOA president in 2020?
Overall, the maintenance, repairs, replacements of what goes on in the community, and at that period of time, I actually spearheaded putting the security camera systems in for the community.
Where were those security cameras located?
At the entrances and exits of Burkale and Clay Pond.
Okay. What about license plate readers?
They were put in at the same time.
And were those license plate readers located in those same two areas?
Yes.
Were you contacted by the Horry County Police Department back in October of 2020 and asked about the security cameras?
I was.
What were you asked to look for?
I was asked to look for a silver Odyssey van at the time. And then I was in North Carolina working that day. So I was able to pull that footage up remotely because you could do it through the camera system. And when I told them I had that, then they asked for a bigger period of time, and we provided the images.
Do you remember what that time period was?
As far as date or?
The date and the length of the time period.
The original time period was 4 hours they were looking for, and then when I called them back and said, yes, we had the vehicle that they were looking for, they asked for a 24-hour time period.
And were you able to review that footage?
I was.
Did you see the Honda Odyssey van the police asked you to look for?
Yes.
Do you know whether Horry County PD was aware of the license plate readers at that point?
Not on the first call, the first day. On the second call, on the next morning, we were able to tell them we could provide the license plate reader information.
Okay. And did the Horry County Police provide you with license tag numbers to look for?
They did.
Were you able to find those license tag numbers?
We were.
And what did you do then?
Those were given to the Horry County Police. I think it was Ken Marcus, Detective Ken Marcus.
Okay. May I approach the witness now? I'm going to show you what's been previously marked and admitted into evidence. The states number 10 and 11. Can you have a look at those?
Yep.
Are those copies of the images you provided to the Horry County Police Department?
They are.
And did those show the license plate number you were asked to look for?
Yes. Do you want me to read that or?
Yeah, you can read it.
It was RWN 362 and RWN 362.
Okay. Oh, were those at the Clay Pond entrance or the Burkehall Road? Sorry.
Those were at the Burke Hill Road entrance side, I believe it was, right? Or was it the Clay Pond? I'm not. Let me take a look at that again.
Yeah, I'll bring it back.
Nope, I'm sorry. These were on the Clay Pond entrance side.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I took them away from the house. Court's indulgence. Is it up here too?
It should be at the very back of the red file.
Oh, it's not. Well, I'm going to approach and show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 158. Can you look at this image and tell me what that depicts?
Depicts the villages of Arrowhead along with the Burke Hill Road and the Clay Pond Road. And then it shows the Flint Lake Apartments and the acres and kind of goes across where the road would go over George Grissom to go over to the airport area.
You testified that you're familiar with kind of how things got developed there. Can you look at that picture and tell approximately what time period it's from, based on what houses exist or don't exist?
Yes, the houses on the 8-acre section next to Flint Lake were being built in 2020.
Okay.
So that picture, there's no homes in that picture being shown. So that was prior to anything being built on there. So that would have been early part of 2020.
Okay. Yeah, at this time the state seeks to introduce Exhibit 158 into evidence.
Any objection?
Move it.
State's Exhibit 158, admitted in objection.
Your Honor, may I have the witness step down to kind of point out some things on the...
As long as it's by the microphone where the court can pick up the testimony.
Okay, do you mind stepping down, sir?
No.
Oh, Your Honor, we publish that to the jury. I'm going to stand over here. Let you stand there.
How you doing, Mr. Moore?
Okay, so tell the jury what we're kind of looking at here.
Okay, so this would be the Clay Pond. This is where the pictures were
Okay.
provided. Over here, this other loop around would be, this is Burke Hill Road. So there's this way in and out, and there's that way in and out. That's the only drivable roads. All of this in the middle here is the villages of Arrowhead.
Okay. And can you show me where Flint Lake Apartments are located?
Flint Lake Apartments are this pod right here and that pod right there.
Okay. And then this area here, what is this?
We always refer to that as the 8 acres, because it's an 8 acre parcel. And that was purchased and then was being developed at that time.
Okay, that's back in 2020.
Yes.
What about some of these areas here?
These are all wooded areas. As you can see back here, there's a little bit commercial, but this was all kind of wooded area back in those regions. As is over here, there's a bunch of wooded area off of Burkale, and there's some ponds down there that Horry County Police gets to come out too often because kids like to play and mess around back there.
What about this? What is this?
That's the Intercoastal Waterway.
So it looks like you're bordered by the Intercoastal Waterway, Clay Pond, Burkow, and then some wooded areas around there.
Yes.
And I think you testified to this, but I just want to be clear. Where were the license plate readers that you brought?
Right here. They were at that entrance and exit. The license plate readers read everything coming in and everything going out, as well as the images coming in and the images going out.
Of course, in Illinois. No further questions at this time. You can have a seat and answer any questions, Mr. Booth.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Morrison, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, sir.
Good. My name's Tommy Brooks.
Nice to meet you.
Everything you testified to, really just about the layout and the equipment that you have, right?
Yes.
You didn't see anything live. You just looking at film and giving them film.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Were you living there on 20th?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear anything? You shot?
No, but it's not uncommon in our neighborhood. Between Burkale and those in the Clay Pond area there, and the wooded areas, there's gunshots quite often.
How about in that parking lot where you got pictures of them in the vehicles? That ain't a wooded area.
What pictures and what view?
You give them pictures of them coming and going?
Yeah, that's at the entrance, the exit and entrance to Clay Pond.
And they got houses there, right?
There's houses at the end of that, yes.
So they could hear the gunshot. Do you live there?
I do. Yeah, I live in
that section?
No, I live on the Burkale section side of it.
But you didn't give them pictures of them going out in the woods anywhere, right?
No.
Okay. Now the area is well lit, isn't it?
The community itself?
Yeah.
The neighborhood had streetlights going down the main road, not where the construction was going on at that time.
Where you gave them a footage of the vehicle you described,
Yes.
that was well lit area.
It's lit, I wouldn't say well.
Well, you could put a camera out there and see the cars, right?
Yes, they're night vision.
Thank you.
Briefly, I believe defense counsel asked you about hearing gunshots.
Yes.
Your response was you hear them frequently.
We do hear gunshots in there frequently, and some people mistake. Between Burkale and Clay Pond and the wooded areas on both sections, there's a lot of people, as probably most of us in Horry County, you hear shots. But also at the time, the airport uses some shot frequencies to scare off predators. So you would hear them quite often because the airport from that area is only, I guess, a mile or a mile and a half as the crow flies. So we do hear it. I mean, and I'll just use myself as an example. Just a few weeks ago, I shot a copperhead in my backyard.
Did police show up at your house after you shot that copperhead?
They didn't, fortunately. But it was with 22 birdshot. But so it's not an uncommon thing. As the HOA president, we never really received calls on gunshots, but we would receive complaints like at a board meeting, why are we hearing gunshots or why do we hear the noise? And we are.
What did you do about it if you got those complaints?
We would just discuss, what our findings have been through the years, and I was there long enough to be able to know, they're usually coming from one of those other areas or somebody shooting off fireworks that people think might be a gunshot.
So I'm just to be clear, when you say people complain, did they call you at home and tell you they were hearing gunshots?
No, it would be at like a board meeting or a issue like that.
Yeah. Do you mind if stepping off again? I just want to clarify something about the lighting that was
Okay.
discussed. Thank you. We put up 158, please. Okay, before we do that, let's talk about, you were just saying, you've got some wooded areas, you said were there gunshots that you heard in those areas?
Yeah, see all this wooded area here? That was all undeveloped. In fact, the guy who owned that hunted and shot there quite often.
Okay.
So that was that area. And then over here off of Flint Lake, was wooded area, and there's a pond area down here that we call Crystal Lake. And it's an Army Corps pond that they put along the waterways. There's always people back there shooting and messing around. So that's why it's not uncommon in the community to do that.
So that happens all the time?
It does.
Okay. So we pointed out this area, I think you call it the 8 acres.
Yes.
That was being developed in 2020. Am I correct on that? Okay. Is this area well lit?
It
Or
was
back
not.
then?
It was not lit at all at that moment.
Okay.
There was no lighting in that section. Lighting did not come until the houses were all but completed and the infrastructure was put in.
Do you recall around what time those houses were completed?
The first people to move in were late 2020,
Okay.
and early going into 2021. And the last house right on the corner here was not completed until 2024.
Okay. So it's being developed.
Yes, I think it's 23 homes total that were built in that area.
Okay. No further questions? Oh, wait, sorry, just answering.
You had said about the lighting.
Oh, the fence goes like about the lighting up here where the cars enter.
Yes.
So what was the lighting like there?
We have a street light in the middle of this here. There's only one, I believe, from this stretch here to that stretch there.
Okay.
There's one street light. But the card readers and so forth are infrared.
Okay, so you're going, so from there to there, about how far is that?
From this entrance to that entrance is roughly a half mile, and roughly from this entrance to this entrance is about a half mile.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Stand right there. I'd like to ask just one or two questions.
Well, I said no report.
Yonder, she brought in new elements.
You should have raised an objection. All right, you may step down.
Your Honor, I believe this would be a good time to break for lunch, as the next witness will be a little lengthy.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch. Again, we have lunch coming for you. I don't know if it's here yet or not, but you'll have plenty of time to eat. Please leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not discuss the case even among yourselves. Hope you have a good lunch, and we'll bring you back probably 1:30. All right, thanks very much. All right, anything from the state before we break for lunch?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
All right, I think lunch is supposed to get here for the jury around 12. So do y'all want to shoot for 1 or 1:30?
Your Honor, may I just, if anticipation on scheduling lengthier 2 or just 1?
Pardon me?
Lengthier 2 witnesses a day or just 1? What are you talking about? I couldn't remember what you said earlier, Mary.
I would say 2 would be lengthy,
Okay.
but we have, yeah, I mean, I think even if we start back up at 1:30, which would be the state's suggestion, I think we still even have the potential to maybe end a little early, but certainly by 5.
All right.
That's no problem. I just want to make sure.
All right, we'll be recessed at 1:30.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.